You know Graybar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Graybar does that.
Hey, welcome into the latest edition of the Show Before the Show podcast, the official podcast of Minor League Baseball. As my name is Tyler Ron, joined by Sam Dyser and Benjamin Hill. What's going on, dudes?
Not much. I can tell how much you guys missed me last week. I was going to cut out a very specific part of the podcast in which Ben said something along the lines of the show isn't the same without Sam, and then quickly corrected himself.
Yeah.
Said, no, actually, this might be the best edition.
Right.
We can forget about that one.
Right. We were hoping that you were going to make that your voicemail.
I mean, it might be my pinned tweet very shortly.
Yeah,
if I can get to the editing equipment fast enough.
All you need is the pull quote, some skillfully deployed ellipses, and you can make quotes mean anything you want.
That is true. That's
how Ben got his quote or his pinned tweet from Bill Murray. It was that also tells you the status of our two accounts. Ben's pinned tweet will be Bill Murray, star of Screen, saying I only follow Ben Hill. Mine will just be Ben Hill saying nice things about me.
There you go. It all flows downhill.
What's a big get for Ben is,
I was going to say, by the transitive property, that means that Bill Murray also endorses you.
Yeah.
I think that's what the transitive property means.
I think that I'm definitely going with that.
Obviously, it has to.
I'm an expert on the transitive property.
So welcome into the latest edition of the Show Before the Show. You can find us wherever you found us and give us a rating and a review and a subscription on Apple Podcasts and Google Play, and get in touch with the show podcast at MILB.com. We have a serious topic to get to, which is, of course, earlier this week, tornadoes devastated large portions of Kentucky, including an area in which one of our longtime participants in the podcast franchise in Bowling Green, Kentucky, the Bowling Green Hot Rods, where they reside. And so we're going to check in on Bowling Green. Ben and Sam, I was present for this interview with Eric Leach, the general manager of the Bowling Green Hot Rods, but just kind of listening and taking it all in because you guys were doing such a great job of getting to this story. Bowling Green is right now doing everything possible to help out with the community. The Hot Rods are, I should say, to help out with their community, which was affected by these tornadoes. Ben, just kind of give us the update on where things stand right now, and we're going to get right into this interview.
Yeah, well, we'll hear most of all of this in the interview. But, we'll reiterate right off the top that, the Bowling Green's front office staff, the Hot Rods front office staff are all okay, and the ballpark itself is okay, but you don't have to go far from the ballpark, less than a mile to see huge destruction, destroyed homes, destroyed businesses. And when a minor league team is so close to that level of destruction, rest assured the minor league team is going to get involved. So we're talking to Eric Leach about just that. There were devastating tornadoes last week, and Bowling Green, Kentucky was an area that was certainly affected. And now the community is dealing with the cleanup during an emotional, tiring, and traumatic time. And the minor league baseball team is there to help, the Bowling Green Hot Rods. So we got a special guest today, Eric Leach, the general manager of the Bowling Green Hot Rods, to talk about what's going on in Bowling Green right now. Eric, thanks so much for being with us.
Absolutely, guys.
So to start, if you can just tell us what was your experience when the tornadoes hit, and just what it was like to experience a storm of that magnitude.
Yeah, it happened Saturday morning at 1 o'clock in the morning, and obviously at that point, my wife and I and family were completely asleep. But thanks to the sirens and more importantly, Apple, the emergency management alarms on our phones went off. And that sat us up immediately, quite loud, grabbed the kids, and we're lucky enough that we have a basement. So many here in Kentucky don't, because of the rich limestone and all the rocks. It's difficult to have basements. So we immediately got the family in the basement, turned on the news, and the news, they were giving updates, and all of a sudden you saw half the town go black. the other half went black, and then the news broadcast went out. And so we were fortunate where we lived that we had no damage. But at that point, the realization is something's going on. Internet was out, and so you had no way of really finding out what was going on until Saturday morning. You woke up and you started getting reports that a tornado ripped through right by downtown, about a mile from where the ballpark is. And so immediate thing for us was to start to check on our staff. And very fortunate, we had a couple folks living 2 blocks away from where the heart of the damage was. They had trees down, but every one of our staff was okay. Then from there, stadium was fine. And then you head into, okay, how do we help? And throughout that process and try and dissect, how can the hot rods be part of the healing process and help out the community?
Yeah, and that leads directly to my next question is, after the fortunate news that, of course, you and your family and the staff is okay, how do you regroup and develop a plan to then help the community? Because there must be so much going on, so much to take into consideration. But at the same time, given the ballpark and front office, their connection to the community, it seems like it's a very good organization to really play a meaningful role in the wake of a disaster like this.
Yeah, we reached out to city leaders, and immediately they said, please stay away. FEMA's coming in. There's a disaster area, and they wanted to cordon it off. But the staff members that we had that had down trees, we got together and, had some chainsaws and had hands. So we helped our staff members get their yards cleaned up and their neighbors' yards cleaned up. And I took my 11-year-old son because as a dad, that's part of my opinion, educating, and he was complaining about internet being out. And we got done. He said, Dad, thanks for taking me. And he said, what else can we do? And so I just started thinking, and so many of the small businesses along the path were destroyed, over 100 businesses. And here we are, we have all these luxury suites. It's off season. So I simply just tweeted out to any small businesses affected, let us know, we'll open up our suites for you. And I didn't anticipate it taking off, but next thing you know, all night long, all I was doing was answering messages in my inbox. And so we opened it up, and about half of our suites are occupied by businesses. Some it wasn't an ideal fit, others are. And so some of them have a chiropractor's office. Yesterday had patients coming in here to the ballpark. And so that was one little thing that we did immediately, offered our goods and services of, food and water. And then ultimately it comes down, guys, to raising as much funds as possible to help those who are devastated. So reach out to MLB on the auctions and then our minor league brethren. And today at noon, we are launching a tornado relief auction. And we have about 70 plus items from around the country, experiences, autographs, and 100% of the proceeds are going to go to help victims here in Bowling Green.
And Eric, how can people find that? Because by the time people, this podcast will be out, that auction will be ongoing. So where's the best place for people to find that auction and potentially give?
Yeah, bghotrods.com, and it's going to be up on landing pages with MLB and MILB, and it has its own spot. And there also will be a couple organizations if people don't necessarily want to bid on an item but want to donate. The Warren County Public Schools Tornado Synergy Fund and Stuff the Bus is an organization that Kyle Wools, our AGM, is the president of, nonprofit. They've already raised over $100,000 to be able to give and help assist the victims. Public schools closed down this week because all those displaced are sheltering in the schools. And so that's why we're going with the Synergy Fund, because they're right there providing grief counseling, guidance, helping families out, and it immediately will get into the hands of the families.
Yeah, and then we've talked so much about what Bowling Green is like right now, and how things are looking on the ground. I don't want it to just be defined by that. We've had you on the podcast previously. We've talked about Bowling Green hot rods and how good they are at promos, and you guys are with name changes and the like. But for those who don't know, those who've never been to Bowling Green, Kentucky, what is the community like there?
So Bowling Green is actually, for those who haven't been here, we're the third smallest minor league market in the country. So Warren County as an entire county has about 120,000 people. And I will tell people this, Warren County has everything to offer. It is a tremendous community. And I'll be honest, guys, I've had opportunities to leave, but I love it here so much. And it's a great place. the one thing that we have seen, and I get chills just saying this, is how much this community has rallied around everybody. There's not a single person, sorry, I'm going to get emotional, not a single person in town that hasn't stepped up, offered. People have left their job, they have skid steers, and they're out moving debris. Everybody in this town has rallied, and it's an awesome testament to the community and how much we genuinely care for neighbors. We're like everybody else. Everybody has problems, but this town really genuinely loves one another and has really rallied and stepped up in a huge way.
And Eric, you mentioned the renting out, or not renting out, but donating or letting people use suites in the office, letting business owners set up shop there, so to speak. What are other ways that the ballpark, being a unique space and spacious within the community, are there ways that that is being utilized, or ways you're planning to utilize that in the coming days and weeks?
Yeah, on Friday we're hosting a blood drive out here at the ballpark, and within about 2 hours of us announcing it, every slot was filled to donate blood. They are going to be taking walk-ins, and then from there it's going to be honestly just reaching out to community leaders. As we head into the winter months, it gets a little bit more difficult, but the cleanup process on this, it's going to be 6 months to a year, and so there's going to continue to be needs. And as a team, we've talked about various ideas and theme nights to help continue to raise money and raise awareness for those who need the assistance.
Yeah, that actually brings me to what I was going to ask next, is that, this off season, especially just coming off the winter meeting, so much of this time is usually spent for you guys planning for the 2022 season, looking ahead. I know that's kind of difficult to do right now, to focus on the long term when there are so many short term needs. But how is this going to affect the way you guys look at 2022 and how you guys are going to formulate a season and potentially trying to build around this community more so than you normally do?
Yeah, we're already planning on a special game and to recognize those. And guys, the utility line workers from all over the country have flooded into Bowling Green and honestly Kentucky to help try and get the power grid back up and running. And it's to recognize those frontline workers, and they're working 20-hour days. And unfortunately, it's currently now raining here. It's going to rain for the next 3 days, and they're out there trying to get power restored to everybody. And so we're going to do that. Outside of that, the one beauty about sports is we provide entertainment and we provide distractions. And so we're going to continue to build our promo calendar, do the things that we do to enrich the community, and be there not just as a distraction, but as a beacon for the community, and continue to be plugged in.
And speaking of community, you mentioned how the Bowling Green community has rallied around one another in such a great way. But the baseball community, as far flung as it is also very much a community, tight knit, people supporting each other. In terms of getting items for the auctions, or just reaching out to other teams, or hearing from people who maybe are in baseball but aren't near Bowling Green, what has been your contact like with people and colleagues all over the industry?
Great question, Ben. I simply I wrote an email, Kyle sent it out, and teams are like, absolutely 100%, and they jumped in and started sending items. And it's as far as Eugene to teams in our league, other teams, and we did spend some time talking to various teams who have had similar situations of disasters, and they offered some great guidance. But the items really flowed in, and what was cool was it wasn't just, hey, I'm going to send you this. I mean, they're sending some really, really cool stuff. Autographed baseball, Cal Ripken, batting practice at the Durham Bulls that you can be part of it, and jerseys, and Bobby Witt Jr. autographed jersey. And so some really awesome items that team stepped up, and high-end things. And so we are a big community, but we're a small community, and I can't thank them enough for stepping up and kind of rallying around us. And some teams even sent money, and that's awesome. But Somerset Patriots went through the flooding and the hurricanes, and they've been a great sounding board and real huge assist to us in getting this set up really quickly in a matter of days.
Well, Eric, I know you're extremely busy right now for very obvious reasons, and really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. I know before we got on the air here and started this segment, you said your office is a revolving door, and I'm sure there's just so much to take care of. But before we let you go, just to kind of maybe synthesize all the things we've discussed, if people listening to this want to help, if you could just, one more time, tell us some of the organizations that you're involved with that you really support. And once again, of course, you can also check out the auction as well.
Yeah, you can tap into all that at bghotrods.com. There will be a tornado relief link that'll take you to the landing page. But the Warren County Public Schools Tornado Synergy Fund and Stuff the Bus organization are the two that we're partnering with. Again, because those families are being housed at the school system, and they've got the grief counselors, they've got all the things set up. Two great organizations, and really appreciate the support. It's never something that we want to have the conversation about, but I appreciate you guys reaching out and being able to help spread the word.
No, absolutely. I plan on making a donation later in the day, and anyone listening to this podcast, hope you might consider it as well. And Eric Leach, General Manager of the Bowling Green Hot Rods, thanks so much again for taking the time to speak with us on the show before the show.
Thanks, guys.
So a huge thanks again to Eric Leach for joining us, and obviously a very difficult time in Bowling Green and in Kentucky, and our thoughts, not just, of course, with the minor league baseball community there, but with everybody affected by the tornadoes. You can head to bghotrods.com where the relief effort, the portion of it that the Hot Rods are hoping to do their part with is linked on that site. And I mean, that's an emotional interview. We are lucky in that we so often just get to talk about the fun things. And when the real world comes to bear, it's always tough seeing a member of the minor league community that is, grieving lost portions of the community and deaths in the community and all of that. And it's really important, obviously, that we all do our part to help out in circumstances like this. And for Eric and that team, I mean, it is a tough challenge to be tasked with to help out the community, but it's pretty amazing the work that they're doing already.
Yeah, and I will say, speaking of the fun things, and that's what we usually cover. Of course it is, but I do think that covering these fun things, creative things that teams do, and visiting the ballparks whenever possible, gives you a sense of connection to the place itself. So then, when something bad happens, it becomes, I think, more real in the sense that you say, oh, I know people who work for that team, or I visited that ballpark, or I know things about that area because, hey, the Bowling Green Hot Rods, often change their name to the Bootleggers, and there's a wide history of whiskey and whiskey distilleries in the area, or they were the Sinkholes once. And that was because the Corvette Museum collapsed in a sinkhole, and these classic cars were swallowed up. And when they had to name the team contest, one of the options was cave shrimp, because there were blind cave shrimp that lived in the underground caves, which then also do contribute to the sinkholes, and so on and so forth. But I do think learning about minor league baseball, it's a point I talk about a lot. It makes you know so much about the country and about these different places. And I think, in its own way, increases empathy when things are not going well or when a disaster strikes, because you have more of a connection to that place.
Yeah, I mean, you heard about Eric talk about it in there about what minor league or what the Bowling Green community is like in its best days. But my hope for this podcast, and particularly Ben, for what you do, you've always said what you do is essentially, look for America through the prism of minor league baseball. And that these discussions that we have on these shows, these topics that we cover on these various places across the country, coast to coast, even internationally in some cases, is kind of a leaping off point for some of you folks in terms of finding out more about these places, whether it's through an alternate identity or a name change or an event that's going on there. Yes, that's all tied back to baseball. It's all tied back to the ballpark, but in a broader sense, it's tied into the region and what that region is like. And hopefully you learn a little bit something about them. So when something like this happens, more about Bowling Green than just it's the tornado area from 2021. So you heard what Eric said there about places that need help right now. Best ways to do that. Again, we implore you to check out their website and find out those avenues. And would love to hear that somebody on this podcast or somebody listening to this podcast won that Bobby Witt Jr. jersey, something like that. Won the batting round at Durham Bulls Park. Like there's so many cool opportunities for there. If you want to continue looking at this through a baseball sense, the way the baseball community is circled around the Bowling Green Hot Rods to try to help has been really cool. So there's so many ways to help here. We do implore you to check all those out.
Yeah. So again, bghotrods.com is where you can find that information. And huge thanks to Eric for joining the show. So we continue along in this week's episode of the show before the show. And of course, we're in a quieter time of the calendar for minor league baseball and for baseball news and all of that. We still have ballpark guides rolling out on the sites at MLB.com and MILB.com. Ben and I each had one in recent days / the last couple of weeks, I guess. Ben, what's your latest?
Well, my latest, set to appear any moment now, is my hope, is the Delmarva Shorebirds, who play at Purdue Stadium, technically full name Arthur W. Purdue Stadium. And it's a ballpark I've been to twice through the years, built in 1996, so it's 25 years old now. A lot of recent renovations to, kind of ensure its long-term future. And a cool thing from a fan perspective is that they've added a 360-degree concourse, wrapping the concourse deck all the way around the outfield. So, that's a really cool thing, as opposed to just being able to roam from, foul pole to foul pole, more or less. And, Delmarva Shorebirds, you hear that name and you might not get a sense of where that team is necessarily. Delmarva is, of course, a portmanteau. I hope I'm pronouncing that word right. A portmanteau of Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. The Shorebirds are specifically related in Maryland, or located in Maryland, more specifically on the eastern shore of Maryland in Salisbury, Maryland. And the reason that they are Arthur W. Purdue Stadium is because, Purdue headquarters, Chicken, is across the street. Arthur W. Purdue is the founder of Purdue Chicken, and his son, Frank, played a huge role in getting the team to that area 25 years ago in terms of, donating land and money and connecting business and political leaders and kind of creating the circumstances where a ballpark could be built on Maryland's eastern shore, because there hadn't been minor league baseball in that area for over 40 years, close to 50 years before the Shorebirds came to town. And also that area is part of what has to be one of the most clustered farm systems in all of minor league baseball. Probably the Cleveland Indians only rival it, but in Baltimore.
Cleveland Guardians.
Cleveland Guardians, excuse me. Muscle memory. The Cleveland Guardians. Baltimore Orioles, low A, Delmarva Shorebirds. They go there to high A, Aberdeen Ironbirds, also in Maryland. From there to double A, Bowie Bay Sox, also in Maryland. Then to the Norfolk Tides in Virginia, but not far away. And then finally Baltimore itself. So few fans of a major league team are as well positioned to traverse the entire farm system than those who root for the Baltimore Orioles. And Delmarva is, where that journey begins for the players, and a fun place to visit. And like almost every minor league ballpark, or let's just say like every minor league ballpark, I'd recommend checking it out if you haven't been there before. Their signature food item is the Sherman's Gelati, which doesn't sound totally exciting, but man, I've been there twice, and both times the line for that was crazy. Sherman is the Shorebird mascot, and the gelati is the same color as Sherman himself, very orange with the orange sherbet and swirled with, vanilla, and big time thing there in Delmarva. If you go to Purdue Stadium, got to get the gelati.
I was going to say, Tyler, as the resident Italian person here, have you had a stadium gelati before?
Oh man, that's a good question. I don't know if I have. I'm sure at some ballpark somewhere along the line I've had gelato at a stadium, but I feel like I ordinarily go for just like the standard ballpark soft serve.
Right. Well, yeah, that was gonna be my next question, is gelati even a thing you guys typically have?
Definitely not out here. Definitely not out here. Yeah. I feel like it's relatively clustered too. There are places where you can get it, but not like authentic, East Coast gelati. It doesn't really exist out this far west. But maybe that's the next. Now we have to explore which ballparks include gelato among their frozen treat accommodations at the concessions area. I'm into any and all ice cream options, so I think it's all smart. I have the Quad Cities River Bandits coming up as my next ballpark guide, which similarly to Ben, we believe will be published any minute. Quad Cities was cool because I actually got a chance to go there this summer. My dad and I took a trip to the Field of Dreams finally after talking about it for years and years. And we went to Quad Cities and got to catch a River Bandits game. And it's one of those ballparks that you're so used to just seeing pictures of, with the big, the bridge out beyond right field that connects Iowa with Illinois next door across the Mississippi River, and the big Ferris wheel in left field and all that. And showing up there, it is just as cool of a ballpark as you would imagine. And I thought that Modern Woodman Park was relatively new. It is not. It was built in 1931, and it certainly has been updated and upgraded and all of that over the years. But it's a place that has been really the epicenter of the community sports scene in that area in Davenport, Iowa, and in the Quad Cities area for the last 90 years now. And that was very cool. One thing that was kind of interesting to note about that is the Quad Cities River Bandits, they're bringing their concessions in-house next year. So what right now in that ballpark guide looks like, kind of some very standard fare offerings in Quad Cities that could be changing to a big degree with some cool stuff possibly unveiled for 2022 and beyond. But man, what a cool spot that is, Quad Cities. Davenport is a very cool town, and there is a lot of really neat stuff around there. Obviously, as noted, you're a pretty short drive from the Field of Dreams, but also just some really cool Mississippi River culture, some neat historic areas, some neat natural areas. There is a state park not too far away that is a cave system. It's connected by a 6.5 mile trail system that goes through all these different caves and bluffs and cool areas, and the restaurants and the breweries and Whitey's Ice Cream, which is a legendary stop in Davenport and elsewhere. It's a neat spot. Quad Cities, if you find yourself in Iowa in the summertime or crossing the country or whatever, that's definitely a stop that is very much worthwhile. And that was a fun one. So that one will be up on the site. I'm also working on Winston-Salem. I'm waiting on some photos from the dash. I'll have that one coming up soon. Ben, what do you have next?
I'm staying in the Baltimore farm system and working on Bowie Bay Sox right now, Prince George's Stadium. And Tyler, to briefly go back to Quad Cities, one thing that I've always found interesting about Quad Cities, not necessarily the ballpark itself, is that for decades, the Quad Cities have actually been the Quint Cities.
Right.
And there have been attempts to kind of say, let's call it the Quint Cities now, but now referring to the Quad Cities actually means essentially referring to 5 cities. But it's still called the Quad Cities. And that's just one of those things. And off the top of my head, what is it? Davenport, Moline and East Moline, Rock Island, and Bettendorf?
Bettendorf. That's the one that I can never remember. Yes.
My goodness, I impressed myself sometimes.
Nice work.
So the Quad Cities River Bandits represent those 5 cities. And Quad Cities essentially means Quint Cities, but people just still say Quad. Very important to note that.
Well, and what's kind of interesting too, they used to be known as the Quad City River Bandits, and then they changed the name to Quad Cities, plural. And that's kind of gone back and forth throughout the history of not only that franchise, but previous franchises in that area. And yeah, a really interesting, cool little part of the country that I had never been through. And I'm very glad that we made that trip this summer.
Yeah, and real quick, before we move on, just one thing that's always stood out from like watching games and seeing pictures of that place is just the backdrop out to the outfield. Is it as impressive in person?
Oh yeah. And it's, especially being somebody who comes from the western part of the country, we don't have big rivers out here. And every time I see the Mississippi River in person, it's like, oh wow, yeah, this is, now I get it. I get the fuss about the Mississippi River. I mean, it right field backs up to the Mississippi. Kind of similarly to a minor league version of McCovey Cove in San Francisco. It's a river instead of a bay, but it goes, right up to the water basically, which is why, you've seen pictures of when the Mississippi floods, you see pictures of that area with the ballpark kind of in the middle as a little island among floodwaters. I mean, it's that close to the river, and you hit a home run out to right field if it gets out past there's a small berm in right field in some elevated seating areas. If it clears that, it's going to end up in the river, which is pretty cool. But it is just a very impressive backdrop because there is nothing out there to divert your focus from the game. I love a skyline backdrop. I love a mountain backdrop, whatever, but it's kind of cool having a ballpark that just backs up to nothing except that water. And you can see Illinois on the other side, of course, and all that. But, between the Ferris wheel and the bridge, which I believe is called Centennial Bridge, which goes
Centennial Bridge. And Tyler, as I believe you point out in the ballpark guide, the ballpark predates the bridge.
Yeah, it's older than the bridge. The bridge was built, I believe, in the early 1940s. The ballpark dates back to 1931. So that's kind of cool. You wouldn't expect that at all. But man, it is such a neat little spot. And it's one of those places, you don't necessarily think like, well, Eastern Iowa, that's a place that I want to go back to after making a trip. You figure you check it off your list and that's that. But now, especially, after talking with the River Bandits and Dave Heller, their owner, for this ballpark guide, now I've got like a list of all these other things that I want to do if I make it back out there. Galena, Illinois is not far away. That's the home of Ulysses S. Grant. It's also a town that has a preserved downtown area from the 19th century that stood in as Chisholm, Minnesota in Field of Dreams, and apparently is just jaw-droppingly beautiful with, the old brickwork and, the way the streets kind of wind around in this downtown area and all of that. So that's very much my stuff. I want to check that out. There's cool old supper clubs apparently nearby. It's a neat area. It's a really cool little area. And if you find yourself in that area in Western Illinois or in Eastern Iowa, make a stop in Davenport. Do yourself a favor, as my mom would say.
Get a pork tenderloin. Hit the pork tenderloin trail. Those sandwiches. When I went to a River Bandits game last, they had those, and they probably will again, I assume. But those are so well known in Iowa in particular. And if you haven't seen a pork tenderloin sandwich, look them up, because the bun only really is able to cover about 40% of the tenderloin.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
We should not have done this podcast so close to lunch. This is driving me up a wall as I sit here in middle of Manhattan without a pork tenderloin.
I have celiac disease. I'll never eat a pork tenderloin, but I just bring my love of the idea of it to the masses because I'm a very selfless individual.
Yeah, you'll just torture the rest of us here who are podcasting on empty stomachs.
So that's what's coming up and what is already up with the ballpark guys as we get set to put the finishing touches on this week's episode of the show. Before the show, Josh Jackson swings by and we'll be back to wrap it up coming up next.
All right, listen up, nacho chips. Quiet down, crispy potatoes. This is the moment Velveeta's been preparing you for, and you're not about to crack under pressure. Today's the day to go all in on the drip. Velveeta's Heat and Eat Queso is the MVP of any game day spread, so stick by them, and you'll be golden. Now get out there and make delicious history. No tailgate party is complete without Velveeta.
We interrupt this podcast to bring you another thrilling edition of Ghosts of the Miners. Now, here's your correspondent and host, Joshua Jackson.
Welcome back to Ghosts of the Miners, in which all of you out there in Radioland must identify the legitimate historical ball club hiding amidst the fraudulent pair. One was the real McCoy, the others are mere MacGuffins. In the last segment, I asked you which of the following minor league baseball teams did at one time exist. A, the Apache Junction Doglegs. B, the Hamilton Pigtails. C, the Portland Webfoots. I won't call you a filthy animal if you guessed A or B, but the correct answer is C, the Portland Webfoots, who looked like a duck, swam like a duck, and sometimes played ball like a duck in the old Pacific Northwest League in 1892, 1898, 1901, and 1902. Occasionally known as the Web Feet, the Portland Club adopted as its moniker the contemporary slang for a person happy living in a wet climate. Whether you think of them as avian or mammalian, those teams appeared calm and unruffled on the surface, but paddled like the devil underneath. After finishing second in the first 2 marches of the Webfoots, Portland flew away with the circuit in 01. Featuring Joe Tinker, he of the Hall of Fame and baseball's sad lexicon, and managed by Jack Grimm, that flock of Webfoots ducked no challenge, going 73-35 to pace the league by nearly 30 games. But Portland was adrift the next year, smothering the Spokane Smoke Eaters and catching the Tacoma Tigers, but failing to get control of the Helena Senators, getting buried by the Seattle Clam Diggers, and never surfacing to the level of the Butte Miners. When the Pacific Northwest League reorganized as the Pacific National League for 1903, the Webfeet had kicked their last stroke. They were shortly thereafter replaced in the hearts of Oregon baseball fans by another web-footed franchise that kept the Portland pro baseball scene busy. Leave it to the Beavers, the damnedest team in the Pacific Coast League from the early 20th century into the 21st. And that's the Arch of the Webfoots. Now, on to the question for next time. Which of these vegetable-craving clubs was short-lived in the minors of yesteryear? A. The Patterson Lettuce Crunchers. B. The Davenport Onion Weeders. C. The Colleen Pea Snappers. Want to know the answer? Consult a cucumber. Or tune into the next Ghosts of the Miners. But for now, you'll have to excuse me. My producer Ben Hill is trying to break into motion pictures, and the studio walls are too high.
Final segment of this week's episode of the show before the show. Again, a massive thanks to Eric Leach from the Bowling Green Hot Rods for joining us. You can visit bghotrods.com to contribute to the relief efforts for the areas in Kentucky affected by the tornadoes. And we're getting set to say goodbye. Big thanks to Josh Jackson, of course, as well, for stopping by with Ghosts of the Miners. Next week, our final episode of the calendar year as we wrap up year number 7 for this podcast. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. 7 years of this podcast, not 7 full. I think we started in like April, but that's kind of crazy. What are we going through next week, Samuel?
I was going to say, does that mean we have a doctorate in podcasting, or is that still a master's degree?
I think we get a doctorate now.
We can declare ourselves doctors in 2022. It's all
easily
made up.
Easily.
So next week we'll just be wrapping up the year that was, a year that saw minor league baseball return across the country, which was a big deal in an altered form. Obviously, lots of new things happened this year. We'll kind of review it all and look forward to what's happening in 2022 and what we can kind of take from this new year of change and return and carry that forward to next year. So we'll be back to wrap up the year that was, preview the year that is to come, and then we'll be back at it in 2022.
So for Benjamin Hill and Sam Dykstra, my name is Tyler Maughan, and for the final time in 2021, next week, we'll talk to you then.